In this video, you are going to see a man with half a brain, a real-life magnetic man, a man who has a super long beard, and so much more. Starting off with the man with the world's biggest mouth and working our way up to some of the craziest people of all time. Let's get started with number 15, Francisco Domingo Joaquim. Francisco Domingo Joaquim from Angola has the world's biggest mouth, measured at over 17 centimeters. Francisco, known as Chinquico, had become an internet sensation when videos of his incredible mouth stunts became viral on YouTube. Still, scouts of the Guinness Book of World Records just recently managed to track him down in his Angola hometown. His jaw-dropping tricks have been viewed thousands of times, earning Francisco quite a reputation as the man with the world's largest mouth. He puts all kinds of strange things in their mouths, including saucers, coffee cups, bottles, but none could beat Chinquico's Coke can stunt. Moving on to number 14, man with the most extended hair. Tran Van Hay's hair is 6.8 meters long. He first grew it out of superstition because he got sick when he had his first haircut like a boy. And so obviously the only logical cause of action was to not cut it for the next 50 years. After falling severely ill after cutting his hair at 25 years old, Hay decided never to cut his hair again. Over 50 years later, his hair was over 22 feet long and weighed around 23 pounds. Though his hair was never officially measured by the Guinness Book of World Records, Tran Van Hay was known as the man with the most extended hair in the world. The more his hair grew, the more he had become inspired by the local Buddhist monks. He dedicated the rest of his life to curing people as an herbalist and never charged his patients a dime. Moving on to number 13, man with the biggest nose. The world's most nosy man, Mehmet Özerk, has the biggest nose in the world at an incredible 3.46 inches. He's been confirmed as having the world's longest recorded nose. His nose measures 8.8 centimeters when it was last measured. He lives in Artvin, Turkey. However, the authority on records further reported that this might not be the longest nose ever lived because there are reports from the 1770s that suggest an English circus star by the name Thomas Wetters had a 19-centimeter long nose. Run for cover if you sense a sneeze coming on because Mehmet's hooter is the longest on a living person at 3.5 inches. Moving on to number 12, man with a 14-foot mustache. Ram Singh Chauhan has been growing his mustache since 1970, and now it's an impressive 14 feet long. Grooming takes an hour every day, but on the plus side, he saved a ton of money on shaving cream. The stash is more than 32 years old, and the last time a shaving blade was used to trim it was in the 1970s. The Guinness Book of World Records has recognized Chauhan's feat, but that has not stopped him from cultivating it. However, its growth has slumped in recent years. Chauhan's incredible stash has made him travel to Italy and Germany. Moving on to number 11, man with half a brain. Carlos Rodriguez lost a considerable chunk of his skull after crashing into a tree while driving under the influence of drink and drugs. Carlos smashed his head in the asphalt, and doctors had to remove a significant portion of his skull and brain to save his life. Thus, he became the man with literally half a brain. Despite the procedure, he retains most of his mental functions and can do pretty much everything a man with a full head and brain can do. One theory for why there was not much impairment in his memory and cognitive ability is brain plasticity and the young age at which this happened. If someone gets a portion of the brain removed in their youth, the remaining areas adapt and stand in for the missing parts, so they usually function. Moving on to number 10, world's tallest man. Sultan Kozan, a Turkish farmer, is the world's tallest man. While he could not complete his education due to his condition, he claims to enjoy a relatively normal lifestyle. But nearly 2 years after gamma-ray radio surgery at the University of Virginia, doctors had confirmed that Mr. Kozan had overcome acromegaly. This rare hormonal disorder caused him to keep growing well into adulthood. He stopped growing, which is good, by a non-invasive procedure that zapped the troublesome pituitary tumor deep inside Mr. Kozan's brain with extreme precision. He got married recently. The bride was a 20-year-old woman from the Syrian town of Hasaka, but the most interesting thing is that 6 meters of fabric were needed to prepare the suit of the 2.51-meter-tall groom. The suit was finally provided to Kozan by the courtesy of a sponsor. Many distinguished guests, in addition to the families, were present at the wedding ceremony. Moving on to number 9, Stretchy Man. Gary Turner is a wonderful human being with the stretchiest skin. Born with a rare condition that means his skin is twice as thin as it should be, he's able to turn the skin on his belly into a table that can hold 3 beers. When he was born, the midwife said that he had loose skin, which was the only clue about his condition. Gary Turner knew about his stretchy skin from an early age. At the age of 13, doctors figured out that his stretchy skin was due to a scarce and extreme case of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. This is a genetic disorder of connecting tissues that affects ligaments, skin, and internal organs. In this condition, the collagen, which strengthens and determines skin elasticity, becomes defective, leading to the loosening of skin and other problems. Moving on to number 8, a tongue wider than an iPhone 6. Byron Schlenker has the widest tongue, coming in at a crazy 8.6 centimeters in width, which is 2 centimeters wider than an iPhone 6. Previously, the widest tongue was 3.1 inches, according to Guinness World Records, the repository for obscure and unique bodily measurements. For his part, Byron said he's getting used to the fame that comes with the Guinness title. He often gets stopped by people at the grocery store or when he's out in town to take a picture. He has had people come into his house to sign their record book. He even had one lady who asked him to lick her Guinness book, which he politely declined, and the surprising thing is that he can talk normally. Moving on to number 7, the one who paints with his tongue. Then on the other hand, or tongue, there's Nick Stoberl, who has the longest tongue. It's 10.1 centimeters long, which means he could get a job as a guitarist in Kiss, no problem. His dad was a huge fan of Kiss, whose lead singer Gene Simmons possesses the undisputed most extended tongue in rock history. Stoberl can lick his elbow. He can tweet with his tongue. The iPhone is sensitive to that, he said. Plus, his tongue seems to have extra sensations. The artistic side of Stoberl is especially pleased that he can use his tongue as a paintbrush. Stoberl has started using his liquor as a paintbrush, making portraits and artworks by dipping his tongue in acrylic paint and then onto canvas. Stoberl has done numerous tongue paintings, including one talk show host Steve Harvey, but is proudest of his most famous work, a giant beaver. Stoberl, who often works as a sharp-tongued stand-up comedian, was inspired to become a tongue painter 2 years ago after seeing the work of a tongue painter in India. Moving on to number 6, human magnet. Lu Thon Lin, a retired contractor from Malaysia, is also the real-life human magnet. Mr. Lu has the unusual ability to attract metal objects to his body and make them stick there. Much like Magneto from X-Men, Lu can make metal objects weighing up to 2 kilograms each and up to 36 kilograms total stick to his skin like metal sticks to a giant magnet. If you still think Magneto's power is more excellent, manipulate electromagnetic fields and attract tanks and helicopters. Lu also passed on his gift to his grandchildren, who are beginning to exhibit his unique abilities. Moving on to number 5, Tree Man. Didi Koswara says that he scraped his knee in the forests of Indonesia and then later noticed that small warts began to sprout around the wound. Slowly, these bark-like warts spread to his feet and hand, and now he is a real-life tree man. Koswara, who suffered from a rare, incurable disease that caused massive growth, had always hoped to live until a cure was found for illness and returned to his profession, carpentry. The condition was so critical that his hands and feet were covered in more than 13 pounds of warts. The growths on his body remained regrowing after multiple treatments to extract the same. Moving on to number 4, woman with an eye-popping talent. Kim Goodman has the most eye-popping talent on the planet. Learning about Kim Goodman is indeed an eye-opening experience. She's a woman who can force her eyes 12 millimeters out of her eye sockets. She holds the world record for the furthest protrusion of eyeballs. Ever since her eyes popped out, she's been performing it on many different TV shows and has toured across the world. Her big eyes pop out only when she decides to, which is a rare gift. Eye bulging is not something Kim does every day, but her eyes pop out of their sockets for her fans every once in a while. Moving on to number 3, man with an eyeball tattoo. This scary-looking individual has tattooed his right eyeball. But that's not even the worst thing he's ever done. Bauman has earned the nickname Eyeball because of a tattoo that has darkened the whitest part of his right eye and who has other designs etched onto his head. Take eyeball tattooing, a fad that started with a US tattoo artist who goes by Luna Cobra's name. He injects pigment directly into the eyeball, so it rests under the eye's thin top layer. Jason Barnum is currently serving 22 years for burglary and shooting a police officer. Moving on to number 2, Elastic Man. Vijay Sharma is the Elastic Man who is ridiculously flexible. He can wrap his legs over his head and wind his arms around his back, among other crazy things. When he was training for martial arts, he realized his body was so bendable and might set a world record in flexibility. He can bend his leg up to 180 degrees forward and backward, and can pull his leg all the way up without any external help. Hailing from a village in India's desert state of Rajasthan, Vijay is a regular stage performer and has been featured in Limca Book of Records in the years 2004 and 2005. Moving on to number 1, Man with the most piercings. Rolf Buckles has the most piercings in the world and has a total of 453 piercings and rings all over his body. Sorry about the nightmares you'll no doubt be having tonight. According to Guinness World Records, Rolf works in information technology for a telecoms company in Germany. At the age of 40, he started on the journey of body modifications by getting his first ever tattoo and piercing. In the more than 20 years since, he has been rendered almost unrecognizable with several piercings along his lips, eyebrows, nose, and even 2 small horns on his forehead. It was 5 years and several modifications after that Rolf Buckles had 2 horns implanted into his forehead. He shot to attention again recently after Guinness World Records shared his videos on their social media channels. He flaunted his piercings along with the new addition, a set of devil horns, at the International Brussels Tattoo Convention this weekend. Comment down below who among this shocked you the most. Subscribe and we'll see you in the next episode of Stay Wise.